All right.
Mmm,
Okay.
sausage.
So the cameras obviously need to be adjusted a little bit. We're gonna do that now. Gonna nudge these
We'll
cameras.
do it live.
We're doing it live. Hello, Twitch chat. We're nudging cameras.
Oh, I gotta turn my.
Oh god.
Can you hear that? You probably can, right? The fan.
I can't hear anything, but I am fairly
Oh
confident
yeah,
that
it's
your
definitely
local
showing up on
will.
the thing. Yeah. No, that 100% is showing up on the thing. And we're not doing the whole Nvidia broadcast thing again. Like that's how sadness happens.
Your computer could probably handle it, but also, like, what if we didn't mess with it? I think is
Yeah,
cool.
well, also like the last time that we tried it, it's still like I had it on for like 5 seconds before you were saying that there was already noise. So let's just not like I've had a like thing enough things have happened this week that like I would like to just have a nice chill thing without my computer ruining everything.
I like where your head's at.
Yes.
And all right, cameras are fixed. Okay.
I want to get the lineups for last week. I imagine we're not going to spend a ton of time talking about tournaments, but
No. No.
those are old decks. But
Okay. I have cameras. What else am I missing here? I mean, this episode is just going to be like standard vibe in the episode, so I'm not
yes,
going to spend.
I am all about that.
And then
Someone just sent me a thief priest that they're supposedly 5-2 with.
this your
Small
brand.
sample size.
Yeah,
I know.
every,
Well, I mean, I think
everything is small sample
tag
size.
well they tagged me because they want to get it on the spreadsheet.
Sure.
No, Dano, nothing happened this week. Just same old, same old.
Okay.
Actually, while you're messing with stuff, I'm just going to turn down the AC so I don't
Sure.
roast.
What am I doing here? What day is it? The 5th. Cool. Thank you for the sub, D. Finberg.
All right, I'm back.
This is. I read the tournament decks and I saw a press store and I just like I kind of want to skip the entire section.
I don't blame you. It feels like it was so long ago too because we're recording on Friday. Like
yeah.
And I was like hyper focusing on a 1,000-piece puzzle that Maureen had on the dining room table that has been there for like several weeks. So I was like listening to it sort of while I was like I lost like 8 hours to it this weekend. It was ridiculous. Because it's like all black and like different shades of black and like and nothing, no hints to help you like with anything.
Oh no way! I'm looking at. I'm not responding to you. I'm sure you said something, but the thing that was breaking Piranha Swarmers was Primordial Wave. If you played Primordial Wave, then future Piranha Swarmers, any on summon effects would just stop working.
Weird.
Extremely weird. And then also they apparently fixed the Murloc Holmes crash bug, the disconnect bug. But also
So they solved the mystery.
apparently. But there are a couple unexpected interactions right now. Do we need to speak to any besides specifically collateral damage?
I don't
That
even
one's
know what's
kind
going on
of
with collateral damage.
extra damage.
Oh,
A
is that
lot.
why I died? Okay,
Yeah.
that
It's
makes sense.
I will attempt to explain it on the show, and I will confuse people when I do because it is a confusing bug. Because
Awesome.
Wait,
Yeah.
we're not gonna go to Blizzard jail for that, are we?
we're going to talk about how the card. There's a post on the Blizzard forums that I can read verbatim.
Okay. All right.
People should understand what's going on. Like it is. I do not worry about any sanctions for explaining how the game currently works. However,
Yeah, we're not telling people how to exploit it. We're just telling people what's happening when they do it, right?
yeah. I mean, there is a.
I mean,
there
will
is
it get people to play an 8-mana card in Hunter? Possibly, but
Well,
you know.
collateral damage, I think,
It's
is good enough.
regardless.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
but sometimes people take triple damage. So
You see a board of whelps and you twin bowed on 7. You're a happy hunter.
Yeah.
the vast majority of the time, just like they're dead anyway. But sometimes, if they're a Renathal deck that has 1/1s in play, then it can be, you know. We'll talk about it. And then also, I'm going to go in a diatribe about Murloculon and Strongman. I'm going to do that because people don't understand how when they're tweeting at me about what Murlocula is doing, that Strongman is what's been bugged this whole time. It's been a thing. I'll explain.
I've just been over in my little wig bubble, not catching any of this. Apparently,
Yeah, it's
it's a good
Wigs are
place to be,
good.
I guess.
I like how that deck functions now without specifically drawing Wig.
Oh
Like,
yeah, it's much better.
It just
We'll
all
talk
it
about
took
that
is
too
3
with
Hand of
King
Adals
Cal.
in one card, and that
Yeah.
and also
does that
Pelagros.
mean?
Pelagros is
That's
so ridiculous.
So good. It's basically all I played for the last 2 days. So, well, no, I did try some stuff for THL earlier, but you know.
Yeah. Yes,
I kinda have
Dan. Strongman has been bugged this whole time since its release, and people are using Murlocula to try and say that Murlocula is bugged, but it actually is proving that Strongman is bugged. So, anyways, we'll talk about it. I think I'm ready. Let me test this. I'm gonna test a bit of testing. Okay. Good. Sounds good. My wife is messaging me about ice cream. I must resist.
Ooh, I like ice cream.
Kirby ice cream.
Ooh, now we're talking.
There's Cold Stone Creamery has Nintendo ice cream collab right now, including
Excuse me.
the Mighty Pink
Hang on,
Puff,
we're
a
gonna
Kirby.
have to stop recording for like half an hour. So you know.
It's off curve, can go on the road. That is a very ice cream influenced podcast.
Oh my goodness.
The Kirby inspired creation, the Mighty Pink Puff, strawberry ice cream, strawberries, mini marshmallows, and caramel. It's very good.
Well, I know what I'm doing tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay. Because
Chat,
our
I am
anniversary dinner got
posting. I
rained
am
out.
posting
so.
the link. There is an Animal Crossing ice cream. There's a Mario Party ice cream, and there is a Kirby ice cream.
Hang on.
Baldwin Greg is eating
I'm-
ice cream
yeah.
right now, and I am extremely jealous.
I've got my Ben and Jerry's half baked. I'm good.
DCU, I see what you did there. I get it. That joke was kind of cheesy, don't you think? Actually, I think you're supposed to say, "How dare you?" You know, it's a dairy. You all get it. All right. I am gonna press record if you all are ready.
I suppose that we could talk about Hearthstone and not ice cream.
Recording.
Please don't consider anything that I have said prior to or after this point to tell you to not talk about ice cream. You bring it up as often as you want. This is a freeze meta. It's appropriate. It's okay.
Okay, I am recording. I just
All
had to text Maureen to let her know that was on our agenda for tomorrow.
Priorities.
That was very important. Like we need to keep our priorities straight.
I think this is fairly consistent with our brand that has existed before this.
I think so.
right.
Both brands actually. So
Yeah. Twice, like a Bronzebeard. Edelweiss, you recording?
I am.
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Starting the show in Get in, loser. We're going to get Nintendo ice cream. Starting the show in 3, 2.
Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you. Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend.
Okay, hold on. Raw audio listeners, there is a scandal a brewing that Steve and his wife, after 20 years of marriage, 20 years, right?
Yeah, 20 years yesterday.
She has been withholding knowledge of the Cold Stone Nintendo tie-in for weeks.
You know what's you say that, but it's likely that I told her and then forgot about it because ADHD.
This seems plausible. We'll roll with that because I can see it. All right. Hello and welcome to episode 355 of Coin Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game and specifics of ice cream more accessible to you. For those of you unaware what I'm referring to, please watch our pre-show, listen to our raw audio, come on Twitch, whatever you want to do. And also, it's the summertime up here in the Northern Hemisphere. Get yourself some ice cream. You deserve it. It is Friday, August 5th in the evening. Nathria has been out for 3 days. From Gadsden, New York, it is me, Ridiculous Hat. From Nomergon, Ohio, it's Edelweiss.
Hey, you're really making me edit in a very specific way this week.
I edited for you the last 2 weeks. Welcome home.
It's true. I appreciate it.
Yes, I appreciate what you're going to do, and I don't appreciate that my wife is sending me links to ice cream delivery right now, which should be illegal. And from Northern Massachusetts, we have Wicked.
Hi, I would like to point out that she is by proxy sending me links to ice cream related material, which is also should be illegal. It's actually multiple counts of whatever felony that she should be charged with.
For some reason, this all seems like compelling evidence to nerf Snowfall Guardian. Anyways, so thank you so much, everyone, for the reviews. Thank you to our patrons for supporting us. Thank you, listeners, for being here. We have a new patron this week, Gary S. Gary, thank you so much for your support of the show. Really appreciate it. And you can check that over at patreon.com/coinconcede or leave us a review. Totally free. Helps other people find the show. Life and Ladder. Nathria. It's Nathria. So, does anyone have anything that happened that wasn't Nathria that they want to talk about? You get to go first if you do.
I don't think so.
I mean, I had an anniversary, so Maureen and I ordered hibachi and from DoorDash and sat and watched Lightyear and What We Do in the Shadows on the big television and played Hearthstone together, and that was our anniversary. We were actually gonna go for an actual anniversary dinner tomorrow, but we have to do outdoor dining and it's supposed to rain, so we're rained out. But that just means that we can go get Kirby ice cream instead. So I think that we decided we're going to Shake Shack instead, and I think that might just be an upgrade. But it's fine as long as we're doing it together. But and yeah, so while we were doing that, I was playing Wig Priest. And Wig Priest is very, 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 very good.
Yep. Yes, it is.
There was a list, and I'm not sure who made it originally, because I was going through the list on HS Replay and I saw it, and it was a little bit off, the beaten path, because it was running 2 copies of Boon of the Ascended, which most of them were running 2 copies of Partner in Crime, and some other stuff. This was only running 1 Partner in Crime and 2 copies of Boon of the Ascended, but it was well beyond the rest of the win rate of the other decks, and I played it, and Boon of the Ascended is a card. Holy smokes, is that a card?
I was sleeping on it, but it's kind of Psyche Split-ish, Psyche Split adjacent. It's close enough because none of the text on your minions in that deck matters anyways, except for the battle cries. You just want numbers, and it just gives taunt to one of the numbers.
Yeah. And what it does is, so Boon of the Ascended is a 4-mana pre-spell that gives your minion +2 health, and then summons a copy of it with those stats and taunt. So it's a Kyrian with those stats and taunt. So if you have a 3/5, you get a 3/5 taunt, and then if they silence it, it's still a 3/5. and when you're playing Wig Priest, it's like a 25 health minion a lot of the time. And the thing that it does for that deck is like, if you fall behind on board, it actually lets you get back in the game, which is kind of a problem that Wig Priest had before. Like, I had a game on stream. I was streaming right before the show again because we're recording on Friday night, and I had a game against Mage, and Mage can be a tough matchup because they could just freeze you on like every single turn, especially if they get the location. They just alternate between like the location and flurry. But so I wasn't really able to get anything stuck on board, and then eventually I just stuck a Radiant Elemental and just started wigging up a minion and made like a 16 or 18 health Kyrian, and they froze my board with Vardengard Grasp and then left the game. And I was completely losing up until that point. And there were a bunch of games like that where like my final boss was against a shaman, where I was just like, they cleared my board every turn for 8 turns. And then I just got a 25 health taunt. And it's like, well, you can make a Snowfall Guardian, but then you still have to get through the taunt. And if you don't have exactly Primordial Wave, you're not doing it. So that card is like, Pelagos is gross. Like, Pelagos is a gross card. And there are some games where you just go like Pelagos Devour or Pelagos Wig on 4 and you have an 8/8 and you win. But there are other games where you just set up a little bit of a longer game and try to find Boon of the Ascended, and it gives it so much more staying power and like an alternate like win con, which is nice. Because like it did feel like kind of one dimensional a lot of the time. Like, you don't have to clear a big board, you just put a big butt in front of it and make them clear the board for you.
You just have more cards that function independently in the deck, and also you have more draw because 3 Hand of Adal location, as predicted, good card. Who would have guessed? And yeah, Pelagos, I've been playing some of this deck too because, I love a good minion combo priest. My opponent made a 9/7 Flame Imp on turn 3. I value traded into it with a Slither Spear because Pelagos. Just, again, I'm going to say that again. Opponent made a 9/7. I traded into it with my 1-drop, which did not die, because Pelagos Coin Devour made a 10/10, which killed their 9/7. They were not in that game much longer. It's very, very good. And, by the way, I figured out where this list came from, Steve. It is a day 1 list from, do you know a Superior David HS?
Oh, it's Superior David's list, really?
It is David's list.
Oh, that is
Yes.
awesome. Okay.
Yep.
Well, he
And
was 1 card off, apparently.
the one Partner in Crime is like, it's not a bad card. And I do see the argument with Boon making your Thrives worse, because I've had that experience. But the
of
payoff
course.
is there, and Partner in Crime is just like, it's okay, but if you're playing from behind, it's never really good enough. And if you're ahead, you never really need it. Whereas Boon, like you said, gives you another axis in which to approach the game, in which you can kind of deny your opponent's ability to value trade into anything except the big thing. So they can't get you off the board the same way, because you get to duplicate your best minion, and you get to put a giant taunt in the way, and it's usually pretty easy to do that. So I've been very impressed by Boon of the Ascended.
Yeah, and if you look at like the 4-cost minions, like they either give you another Naga or they do something like broken, right? Like Samuro, Nagic Hexen, right? Like those are cards that can flip a game on their own. Like Partner in Crime just doesn't do that, and like you need more mana a lot of the time to get it to be anything more than 2/5. Like, you're not playing that on 4. If you're playing on 4, you're getting 2/5s. Like, nobody cares. Like, that's not
you
big enough.
cathedral it, right? Like, the goal is to cathedral and get 2
Yeah,
4/6s, which is nice.
it's fine, but that's not really gonna, like, at that point in the game, you're generally falling behind if that's your turn 4 play, right? Like, it's okay if you can get exactly cathedral into it, but like if you're trying to like wig it or whatever, like you're still talking about like 5-6 mana, and like it's like the same problem that like you had with Samuro being able to clear a board, right? Like you had to have, like, that was like a turn 6 play before. It's not anymore because you can set up the cathedral, which is a big deal, being able to set cathedral up into Samuro. But like if you don't actually have cathedral into it, like a lot of times it's just like, well, okay, I get 2 bodies, and if I'm not like going off, then it doesn't really matter. And like I would rather have 2 bodies that one of them has taunt than 2 bodies that are just like, vanilla minions.
Yep, the good locations I think that we can point to, which is basically almost all of them, are the locations where you generally plan to do something with it the turn you play it, but you can hold it if you need to. But doing something with it the turn you play it is pretty common. Cathedral on 3, pass into Partner on 4 is fine. I would rather Cathedral activate on 3 every time, or Slither on 1, Coin activate on 2, something like that. That's where Partner in Crime is pretty dependent on Cathedral pass on 3, and I don't want to do that. Reminds me of Stormpike Aid Station, where I'd rather just play it as a slightly overcosted Hand of Vidal, and then the next 2 Hand of Vidals are free. The only location I can think of that I'm really happy to play it and pass consistently is the Paladin one, and there isn't really Paladin one to take advantage of that yet, but when you play it on 2 and then just pass, and your opponent wants to go tall, it's like, what do I do this game? Not just this turn, what do I do this game? Because my next 3 tall developments are just not going to happen.
I think Muck Pools, you can play it, because it's just 1 mana, right? You can
do either, right?
Yeah. That one, either way, you can just do it. But
right. Whenever I think of a line of play, I'm trying to think why Partner seemed so good but isn't in practice, because I agree with you. I cut it from the deck too. I put in Boon instead. Is because when you convert Cathedral into something you want to play and hold, 3 mana to skip your turn is not worth it. We call that Relic Vault. We know that's not good enough. We know objectively that's not good enough. So I'd rather just use it the turn I play it, because then I'm not skipping that turn. And what Partner gives you a turn later doesn't get you back the lost tempo, whereas Boon gets you a lot.
Yeah.
Edelweiss, I said Great Hall, and you had a mischievous grin. How has your Nathria been?
It's actually been kind of terrible, which is very different for me when it comes to a new expansion coming out. But looking at, and this is just what is in the tracker, but 166 games played on this patch, 22 hours, 49 minutes. Win rate 39.8%.
Yeesh.
So
that's a lot of games too. I'll point out that is I'm not going to say too many. I'm not here to judge, but I'm going to say that might not be setting yourself up for emotional success, is how I'm going to phrase that.
That's also just a lot of streaming too. I mean, at least like 6 hours of that, right?
It's launch game.
Well, that was probably at least we're actually probably 12, right? Because you streamed twice this week.
3
right?
times.
3 times. So yeah, so a lot of that's on stream anyway.
Yeah.
I think it's a tough situation if you're someone that's trying to not do the main thing. So because out of the gate we knew the Druid with Denathrius, strong. Imp Warlock, very strong. Deathborn Hero Power Mage, quite strong. I didn't know recently about Wig Mage, Wig Priest. That's something I might try. But I sort of was like, okay, so these are 3 decks that I can't play. And I have to try and beat them. And you have to do that in sort of very particular ways. And I felt like the other things going on all have powerful things that you can do, but it's very kind of feast or famine. And then as Theatar worked its way into more and more decks to deal with Denathrius, it could kind of just accidentally screw me up in things I was doing. I'll get my scabs stolen, or playing warrior. I've buffed up something with Anima Extractor and the Theatar and take the thing that I buffed up with Anima Extractor. And then just in general, trying to do board-based things. And if your stuff isn't specifically too big to get cleared by scales, there's a lot of things that makes it feel like my board just gets made irrelevant. I think Sanctum does that a lot too. Just like that, having 3 durability is a lot of freeze your biggest thing. Like I tried to hand buff Pally too, and it felt like it was hard for me to go over 50% with any given thing. And I'm like, I know I could play Imp Warlock, I could play the Druid, I could play the Mage, and I would have a good win rate and it would be fine. But my whole thing is trying to come up with other things. And usually I'm able to manage one way or another. But the difference in power level just feels really stark for me right now. and that's hard, right? Because that's my whole thing is I don't play the top stuff. I get to do it when no one else is, and the difference just feels really rough. And in particular, I really like Enraged Warrior. I really like Paladin. Those aren't doing so hot right now. I hope maybe a Paladin will get figured out soon. Tried a lot of Demon Hunter stuff, even Draco Cats, which was the proclaimed like, oh, this is the good Demon Hunter. I recognize there's a curve in terms of trying to learn how to play certain things, but I still struggled with that. I think I did certainly better than other builds I had done, and I like that the approach that version takes is more sort of, you've got the relics in there as kind of support and to sometimes do some pretty crazy things, but you really follow a Death Rattle Demon Hunter early curve. And you just play it out, and usually you don't play your relics until they're like free.
Yeah.
It's because even discounting a bit off of your first dimensions, yeah, it's kind of just like you do this incremental stuff, and then you have the Bran, Kael'thas, Denathrius as a win condition. Like, that deck was pretty enjoyable, but I still went like roughly 50% with it.
It's pretty
I don't
good
know.
for Demon Hunter. Well, Demon Hunter, we know it's not good right now because people keep defeating Illidan Stormrage. So you got to wait until that stops happening, because otherwise it's just not possible to win with Demon Hunter right now.
Yeah.
And sometimes things just take like a few days, right? Like I remember like this at this point in Sunken City, like Demon Hunter and Priest were like at the bottom of the win rate list, and then they figured out Demon. It took a few days to figure out Demon Hunter, and then all of a
Demon
sudden
Hunter
it
took
was-
until the weekend.
was-
It was deep in Druidstone. We didn't think DH was going to get there. I will point out there is one Demon Hunter list on HS Replay that I found. It's up on the screen right now. Tiny sample size, but positive win rate. If you take a look at it, you will realize
Looks familiar.
this is last expansion's fell DH list with 0 new cards. 55% win rate in HSR, 280 game sample. Tiny sample, but it's streamlined and figured out and has literally 0 cards from Nathria in it. Not a single one.
I did start running into that, and I was like, this seems familiar. And I was like, oh no, this is the one that does well. That's depressing.
Do you want ants? This is how we get ants, right?
And
like
listen, David's made some tweets about this. I've talked about this. I am not going to judge anybody for running last expansion's decks. I want the game to be free to playable, and if you are free to play, that means that day 1 and week 1 is last expansion decks till you get through the rewards track to get enough stuff so you can play the new stuff. No judgment here, whatever. But I wanted to play the new stuff. Everyone wants to play the new stuff, and the new DH stuff, it's Relic, just a little too slow. They could make the location cost 2, and it's a big upgrade, and there are other ways for them to nudge. The aggro archetype, I'm not sure if there's a way to make getting rid of your cards in a card game good for us. They tried. But when you look at the other aggro deck where their job is, what they do is they put all the cards in their hand. And then what the Demon Hunter one does is the opposite. It gets rid of the cards. The one that keeps the cards is the better one. By like a lot. By like a large margin. So I don't know how fixable that is. But either way, like I follow. There's definitely potential to brew here, but every game you play with the brew or the the experimental decks, you work so hard. And there are some decks where you just don't have to do that right now, and I've been doing the same thing of bouncing back and forth between, do I really want to play Imp Block Mirrors? The answer is yes until really no, by the way. The answer is yes until absolutely not. So there are some variations there. Yeah. There's a Chinese player that put Curses and Lady Darkvein into Imp Zoo. Yeah. It's very good. Lady Darkvein is bananas.
Yeah, that card is
she
busted.
Is unbelievable. And so you're going to see more of that. Like, Ike did a 40-card version. Bless his heart. Bless his Ikey little heart.
Why?
But because he's Ike, and because you could put more sweet cards in if you do 40 cards, I get it. But 30-card list has been fine for me. Much better against freezes, because you suddenly also have a bunch of damage from hand. And you're only cutting the tech cards, right? You're cutting a couple 1-drops, your IND drops and your slingers, couple, like, one of the 4-drops or whatever, and then you trim the Sea Giants and you're fine. But I tried out a bunch of different rogue lists. Kreia posted a super baity list of Miracle Rogue that runs Field Contact and Octobot, and I injected it into my veins because I'm a weak man, and it was fine. I had a couple sweet games and then deleted the deck because I knew I would go back. I'm just not strong enough to resist. There are some DH lists that are circulating in the Coin Concede Discord, including Dr. Bomb D, who posted a Renathal Death Rattle Relic DH.
That's a lot of adjective.
I won on Fatigue as a Renathal deck because my opponent learned when you Bolner Theatar, the Bolner swap is random for both players. So they took my Zymox and gave me a Piranha Swarmer. Then they took back the Piranha Swarmer and gave me their Bran. And then their Denathrius was not lethal. And then I killed them. It was very funny. It was a very big Jace, which was juiced up from their Bran. So, you can have those goofy stories, but also I'm not telling you all the stories of like, yeah, they had double library and I died on 5. I'm not going to do that. And in terms of power outliers, we have seen, I think every set, both this year and last year, was released slightly more broken. Stormwind at least was universally broken. This is a little bit more like some classes got it and some classes definitely didn't. Stormwind, it felt like everybody got something. Maybe, I'm sure there's one class that I'm forgetting that someone will tell us in the comments. But it felt like every class got something. But if I look at Barons, like Mage and Paladin were way grosser than anything we have right now, even Imp Warlock. I forget what Alterac was doing, but I think it was mostly like Garrote Rogue was still a nightmare, and also Scabs was 7 mana. Scabs was 7 mana. Ugh. And even the Druid into Drekthar metas in Voyage, both of those felt worse for me than this does right now. You can kind of get away with other stuff, but then sometimes you run into one of the few meta decks that crushes right now, which is usually an Imp Warlock, any deck with Wild Spirits in it, because that card is also unbelievable, or Freezy decks. And those are kind of the things where those are the limiting factors of the format right now, and if you just lost the matchup roulette and you're against them, or if they got the draws, then yeah, it can feel demoralizing. I'm not going quite as deep in the rabbit hole as you are, Adelaide. I'm not going quite that deep.
I had a clear enemy in the Drekthar meta, right? You go after the Demon Hunters, and you can either ignore that matchup or specifically target them. And so I did a lot of warrior things, right? But here, I mean, one, it's early, right? But
3 days.
Yeah, but two, I think it is much harder to say, okay, how do I find something to I can't target all of Imp Warlock, Wildfire, Deathborn Mage, or not Deathborn, but Volatile Skeleton Mage and Denathrius Druid. And I think it's just the ways that they get you are so different and just feel really bad to me. I think with the Mage, it's sort of okay, I can deal with the skeletons this game, and I die to exclusively hero power damage over the course of the game. Or I just can't quite make a board big enough to get out of scales against the Druid, and they just repeatedly clear and clear and clear, and I'm just well, I'm not running Theatar, so I guess I'm dead. And even if I am, it's not super good odds. I feel like Mutinous is almost higher odds to hit what you want. On the one hand, it's not a discover. On the other hand, it only hits minions in the hand. I don't know. But
play both.
Great.
You
so
run Vol'jin,
I have to
why
run
not?
2 tech cards to yeah. It's
Theatar barely counts a tech card, I think. He's a lot better than I thought he was. He's going to be in a lot of deck lists.
And that has also been part of my frustration, right?
Theatar is not the sort of thing that you ever want printed in any set, because the things you like to do are often nullified by a piece being yoinked away for 4 mana.
And sometimes it's just okay, I broke down and played some
Face Hunter.
Or Thief Rogue. And trying out Door of Shadows in there, because Door of Shadows, I think, is a really cool card and more interesting when you don't have that many spells going on. And twice in one afternoon, I got scabs stolen, and it's really really crap feeling. Now Theatar is also interesting in that deck because you can swap something, not relevant and steal a class card, right? And that discounts your nulls or whatever, or it can get replayed. So after getting my Scabs hero stolen twice, I was like, maybe I should put Theatar in this deck to like either take my stuff back or take a class card to replay. But there's
that card is academically interesting. I don't know if it needs to still cost 4 forever because it's already seeing a lot of play. And the people that want to play it would probably still run it at 5. It might need the bad luck albatross approach of it's not even that great, but it's annoying as hell to play against, and it makes my stuff not work. And if you made it a mana more, then the people invested would keep playing it, and the people that weren't won't, and maybe that's okay. And that is, it's very much a feels-based thing. I think the card is interesting. I also play a lot of aggressive decks, and also I got Theatard when I was playing that Renathal Death Rattle Relic DH. The secret against Theatar is not to play any good cards, because then they don't want any of them.
I mean, you also could just you might be able to address this by having Kael'thas say other minions, right? Because
Kael'thas isn't even good.
It's not, but Kael'thas brand Denathrius is in enough decks, right?
Most of those decks are cutting Kael'thas. They
Kael'thas
are. Not even staying.
They're getting there, but like because Denathrius in particular, like that's the only counterplay you have as a slower deck against Denathrius, right? Like, and maybe Denathrius is the problem then. Because like there are a lot of decks that I don't think would run Theotar if it wasn't for Denathrius. Yeah, like being able like there was that clip from the day one stream where, Maury and I were just minding our own business, trying to play Thief Priest and live our lives, and all of a sudden we got and never seen it before, and got Kael'thas brand Denathrius for 85. And
what was the class of your opponent?
Well, they were Druid, but this was the first Druid I played against on that day.
I don't think I have a problem with Denathrius in any class besides Druid, because I feel like if you got it up really high in other classes, you did some pretty serious work. But the rate that Druid is able to scale Denathrius quickly while clearing your board.
Was that a pun? Scale.
What?
Scale Denathrius? Scale of Onyxia?
Oh, no, that wasn't. But yeah, and then on top of it, they are the class that doesn't even need Kale, right? They can just go above 10 mana to brand Denathrius. I think that's where it's rough, because if Draco Cat's Death Rattle Demon Hunter has gotten to where they've drawn through their deck and they tail-end to get the Denathrius instead of Cold Tooth Mine, and have done all this work to build it up, and like, I don't know, 18 is pretty high in that deck, and then they go Kael'thas, Bran, Denathrius, like, it feels like work was done for that. But the consistency of Druid has been pretty nuts for a while, and I think Wild Bloom kind of made that even more so, right? You're still running all
Widowbloom
things.
Season?
Yeah. So, they didn't take any of the ramp out. It's just now they really freely do 40 cards for Wild Growth, Seedsman, Nourish, Guff, and like, I don't know, that deck just feels like a very well-oiled machine.
Yeah, I guess in other classes it feels like if you get Denathrius to be lethal, then your opponent should have ended the game sooner. Like that's kind of like it's like Purified Shard in a way,
You can make an argument for Shaman of like, if they go freeze Denathrius into Bolner Macaw, like I could see that being something that people are upset about. Theatar is the Iron Deep Trog of the set, and that is a safety valve that started open. That if you don't print that card, then Denathrius seems oppressive. And I don't think he is, and I don't even know if these decks are that good, but it's what people want to do, and Theatar is the safety valve there. And remember what they did with Trog when they nerfed all the combo stuff. They also nerfed Trog at the same time. It's something that I think they could consider for a field-based reason, because Theotar is being highly, highly played. Bad Luck Albatross is exactly the reference that I'm going for here, in that it was good against Highlander decks and super annoying on curve and everywhere, and they nerfed the play rate because the win rate was never there to begin with. Could see something like this because, people want to do cool things, but also people want to not die from 80, so they're playing Theotar. I understand. I follow that. And I like in the decks that I'm playing with and against, the stuff that's lower to the ground, Theotar is bad against me and bad for me quite often. But in the later game, it comes down to this is the thing that matters, as opposed to before they printed Elusias and Theotars and Mutanies, Mutanuses, whatever. Before they did any of that, the matchup was all that mattered. So at least there's more than just matchup roulette. But it still isn't a great feeling to be in the receiving end of it, or to just lose anyways because you whiffed on the Theotar, because it gave you the perception of agency and then you lost it. I understand that. But over here, on the aggro side of the fence, things are alright. I'm not imp blocking too much. I've imped a lock. I've imped a lock or two. I have spent some time in the library. I have a card. There have been some catastrophes that have been, narrowly averted. I saw them coming. It's, but you can play all sorts of other stuff. Hunter is low-key insane right now. It's got 3 of the 5 best decks, probably, Quest Hunter being one of the better ones because it beats the blue classes, which is why you play Quest Hunter, because it beats Mage and Shaman. That is the main reason to do it, because it is one of the few sources of off-board damage, but Wild Spirit just goes in every Hunter deck, and it's okay, and I don't care if I get Theotard all that much. And I've also been trying out some Enraged Warrior, and it is... remember how in Barons, Rush Warrior was great after the first round of nerfs despite no cards getting buffed? I think Enraged Warrior is pretty close to there, and there are some goofy synergies. I got a deck list. I found a deck list from Hunter Ace where I learned about a new thing. Edelweiss, have you learned about this thing, Riot Provoke?
I have. It's pretty sweet.
So I was against a zoo. They had a 9/9, 2 4/3s, and a 3/3. I played a Crazed Wretch. I went Riot, Provoke, and then I swung into the 9/6, and then I face tanked the 9/3 with my Outriders Axed. I cleared their board, and I won the game. It was goofy, because Riot, your minions can't go below 1 health this turn, and they randomly attack one other enemy. Then Provoke, all enemy minions attack this one. So it couldn't go below 1 health, and everything hit it. And it didn't use its own attack. And then Riot has another attack. Basically, my Crazed Wretch got to attack 6 times. It was pretty good. And ended the turn with it in play. It was alright. You get these games where you get Anima Extractor and it sticks, and then you play Burden of Pride, and then just all of your minions are enormous. Really, really fun. But then also you get other games where you just draw nothing, or you draw something and then they freeze you a couple times and nothing happens. It's mostly there, but it's not completely there. And so it's discouraging.
I felt like it only felt like I was doing powerful enough things when I did double Anima Extractor. Because when you get double Anima Extractor and you have some number of minions in play, and you've got the garrison, the objective rolling, so that's a whirlwind at the end of the turn no matter what.
Oh, you were going full whirlwind.
And then maybe you play your own whirlwind, right? Games, whether it was the Hunter Ace deck or one that I worked on, games where I got double Anima Extractor and things were good, right? Because the stuff I was buffing was either Remornia or some kind of charge minion. Things get large, I hit someone with a 21 attack Remornia. But if I wasn't doing stuff like that, it just felt like I wasn't really getting there. Because then things are in a size where they either just get cleared easily. And then, of course, Kibler had the heartbreaking screenshot of his very large Remornia getting stolen by a Theotar. The deck doesn't have Battle Rage. It doesn't have Mercenary, right?
Doesn't have Risky Skipper.
I think we could do without Skipper if we had Mercenary. I think
Or Battle Rage.
Mercenary on Extractor would be then Rage Warrior would be one of the better decks right now.
Yeah. And the high end there in that deck, Olgra and Remornia are both great. They're both very, very good cards. Olgra is really strong. Really, really powerful. I've been very impressed with her. But yeah, I mean, these decks are like kind of there. I've played a lot of Rogue. You've seen some screenshots. Everyone's seen some screenshots. And you've probably had one game that you can think of where you thought, how did they ship this? Let me tell you as the person playing that Rogue. Just play like one taunt.
Voidwalker's a card,
a
right?
Voidwalker. I can get through a Voidwalker with a Bone Spike. When that taunt starts to have 4 health, oh, we're in trouble there. Because that takes up an attack. But you can have really goofy turns. You can have crazy stuff. But it feels like the first version of Garrote Rogue and Stormwind with sketchy Loan Shark. And I'm not sure it's ever going to get past that, because the consistency aspect of the deck really isn't there on purpose, and I'm grateful for that, because I don't want that to be the best way to play Rogue, and there are other Rogue decks. The best Rogue deck I have played, you take last expansion's Quest Rogue, and you put in 2 Door of Shadows, because it's a minion-heavy deck, and Door of Shadows always gets Shadow Step, Extortion, or the second Door of Shadows. All really strong. Really, really good. And it's fun to play that deck. I like playing that deck. I think you play Bone Spikes too, because it's a crazy card. I forget. There's one other Nathria card I put in there. And there's going to be something in Rogue. There's always something in Rogue. There's going to be something in Paladin. Great Hall's too good for there not to be anything in Paladin. I don't know if we're going to do dude stuff, like, whatever. I don't even care. I don't care. Are we going to do counter stuff? Maybe. Probably not. I don't care. I just want it, like, Great Hall is so good that we'll do something there, and, like, Muckborn Servant apparently is, like, surprisingly a good card somehow.
Mostly
Service Bell
'cause
is a
it
good
has
card.
Taunt.
I'm not going to try and explain why Paladin cards work the way they do. I have long since learned that is not my role in this life.
I mean, I've seen like a 40 card Holy Paladin with Great Hall. I think the
Yeah.
problem was that like people didn't want to play Holy Paladin like 2 months ago when it was the best deck. They're certainly not going to want to play it like the first week of the new expansion when there's like literally anything else to do. Like there was a time where we were begging people to play Holy Paladin because it was the best deck, and then and nobody was playing it. Now for sure, like it's just gonna like people will maybe will bring it to a Masters tour under duress, but they're if it's just like the data says it's too good, but even then that wasn't enough to get people to bring it. So
Yeah, it's
Well,
every Holy
my
Paladin list that I
struggle-
can see on HS Replay right now, all of them, which is 3, they're all above 50% win rate. They all have tiny sample sizes, but they're all winning more than they're losing. All of them.
Yeah, I'll have to look back at it again, but the games I played with it, what it felt like was that against mages, you die to hero powers. And then against druids, you don't do enough buffing to, like, stick anything. So it's hard to actually ever kill them, and then it doesn't matter if you have damage because the Denathrius can get so large that they kill you anyway.
Right.
Yeah, both of those matchups are bad.
Oh,
It's-
okay, great.
I mean, the
I'll bet
sample
Mobs,
sizes
though,
are
it's easy.
I'll bet you beat Implock though.
the sample sizes are not large. You narrowly beat Implock. You smash Hunter. That is the reason to play it, is that you smash Hunter.
Sure.
Not
You
Quest
probably
Hunter,
beat
but
Wig
the other
Priest
hunters.
too, because I ran into one, and Great Hall is not fun to play against as a Wig Priest.
No,
Yeah,
not
it
at
is
all.
not.
Yeah.
Yep, that is one of the reasons to play it. But the sample sizes are tinier because people don't really want to do it as much. I mean, to sum up this somehow still Life and Ladder section, the decks that are easier to find do feel also a little harder to beat. You usually don't want that to be the combination. You want easier to find to not be the best things. And it is Friday. Usually the first weekend of an expansion, we do find some stuff. We do. There will, I am certain, be something found this weekend that is new and exciting and different. We also know that we're going to get a balance patch in probably 11 days. Probably on the Tuesday the 16th, which is exactly 2 weeks after expansion launch and exactly right after the Masters Tour, because I'm going to go on record, say it now. I will bet both my co-hosts 2 packs and no one will take it. They are not going to nerf 10 hours before decklist deadline. It's not going to happen.
No.
There is no way. Absolutely not. They are not going to expose themselves to another bioluminescent situation where they could do a quick fix and it ends up breaking something else. It's just not going to be a thing.
Yeah.
So
And it's worth adding to that, like, there are some of these decks that may counter a lot of the stuff that may get held under wraps until Masters Tour, right? Like
Yeah.
they may get kept in practice groups, and they may not make it out to be tweeted out because it might be something that somebody finds like at the end of this weekend or something like that. They want to keep under their hat for the Masters Tour. That's entirely it's a lot harder to do that now, but that is possible.
there are no qualifiers this weekend, so it is actually a possible thing. Like, Habu Gabu brought Renathal, Control, Quest, Warrior to trios this past week. Maybe someone does something like that. I don't think you're going to see a lot of Quest Warrior at the Masters Tour, but maybe someone does something like that. Like, who knows what's going to happen? But as of right now, a lot of the best-looking decks also look like the decks that are refinements of deck recipes, and we haven't yet found as much success with the stuff that's a little harder to work for. And the win rate doesn't even look promising on a lot of those. It looks like external intervention is going to be needed. I know the front page of HS Replay is not how you should judge the health of a metagame, but there are two classes in Standard under 40% win rate, Warrior and Demon Hunter. If you look at the archetype scores, Relic Demon Hunter, 33.8% aggregate win rate in Diamond through Legend since launch of the expansion. You don't fix that by finding a better deck list. There is no deck list that's like, oh, we're just 20% better than the archetype. There's you don't undo that much. So it is both, like, this isn't Stormwind, but Stormwind, even though it was harder to play off meta stuff once it was figured out, the first week you could do a lot of stuff. This isn't a Brewer's Paradise quite yet. Pretty far from it, I think. You can tweak, you can tune, but I don't think you can just pick whatever you want and expect it to be okay against Library Catastrophe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that is definitely the sort of you must be this high to ride of
Yeah.
of Standard at present. Is like,
And-
do you have something to do about a bad draw from Imp Lock? Because a good draw, you're just not going to handle.
So, Lepton in chat is saying this is close to Scholomance. Okay, so think about it. Druid seems overpowered on day one. There's a Warlock deck that draws too much and makes bodies that are too large for not enough mana. There's a hand-swapping legendary that everybody hates but isn't even that good. Kinda close.
What did I like back then? Because I played Scholomance for like almost 24 hours straight.
You weren't maging, were you? You weren't maging.
I probably was, actually. Mozaki.
Quest Shaman?
That's probably.
There you go. We
Yeah.
found it. We solved the mystery.
Listen, there is a value-centric modern control adjacent shaman deck here. So, you know what you need, Edelweiss? You need a Glug in your life. I understand. Let Glug into your heart. This is the answer.
Oh,
It
probably true.
always comes back to Glug. I gotta put a bumper for Glug on my soundboard. Do I have one here?
I don't even know what sound Glug makes, to be honest with you.
I want the Glug
Like, I played
stinger.
it plenty. I just never paid attention to like what sound.
Oh, I have it! Hold on. This is... Glug is epic as hell.
All the colossal music is pretty epic.
Yes. Also, I'm just gonna play this. You're gonna edit this out and mark this down, but I'm gonna play this for old time's sake. The ship
Don't really
sank.
hear that one anymore.
Sorry, Nelly. I'm not that sorry.
Uh.
She can sink. It's okay. I don't need this meta would not be improved by more 1-mana smites. That's not what would make me happier right now.
Although, maybe I should try Pirate Warrior with the new one that gives you both a weapon.
Suspicious pirate.
Oh, yeah.
Because I feel like that's one where it's like, sure, you can have a weapon. You can attack your face into my board. That's a great deal.
I do remember that. These suspicious cards are weird. Anyways, this is Life and Ladder. We're going to talk about, like, we've already talked about Hearthstone, but we're going to talk about more Hearthstone. However, I do wish to clarify. My wife, who is a Shiksa, for those of you that are not Jewish, that is a non-Jewish woman, that's what that means, made the most delightful chicken with Simas today.
Oh, really?
And I feel...
Ooh.
We got this cookbook. It's Jew-ish. Jew-ish. It's from a guy who grew up in it, like the Jewish for the culture, like for the food and the jokes household, like I did,
Yep.
and decided to make a cookbook of Jew-adjacent stuff. I'm telling everybody. I'm telling everybody. Okay, let's go to the news.
The next step, Hat, is Cholent. You got to get on the challenge.
There's a recipe in the book. It's earmarked. It's going to come soon.
Yep.
I
Very easy
specifically
to
said
make.
that's Steve's
Good.
favorite. Yes.
Yeah.
Don't-
That is 24 hours of torture followed by about 15 minutes of bliss.
I'll send you the recipe. This is easier. All right, let's go.
Oh, I
News
know
time.
Maureen won't make it, so.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
Okay. So, news. So as you gathered, Nathria came out. There was an expansion. And we are going to do a deck roundup. I promise what we just did was not explanations. But there are also some other things. There's a new Warrior Hero skin in the shop. Garrus the Chained. He's all chained up. Kind of glowing red. It's there. It's cool. I will note, by the way, there are a couple hero skins on the rewards track. Kael'thas is one of them. There's one other. Where their animations are not the final ones, their placeholder animations accidentally shipped. So if they look lower quality, it's a Liadrin is the other one. If they look lower quality, that's going to be fixed in 24.2. That's confirmed from Alicia Cornelia, who's on the production team. So just be aware, those are not final animations.
Those are pretty late in the track, right? Like
Yeah.
I think so.
Liadrin's level 100. I would imagine you're not going to find. I mean, maybe somebody's just like playing 24 hours a day and not sleeping, but
Oh, it's the achievements. You have to get all the achievements, I think, to rewards track that fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
It's-
by the time that you can play with it, it'll probably be fixed.
Probably, but just be aware that those animations, they look lower quality because they are placeholder animations that ship by mistake. They will be fixed in the next major patch, which I'm anticipating will be August 30th, 2 weeks after. They patch in 2-week cycles, so you can tell pretty closely. The expansion went live in the 2nd. The balance patch is probably 2 weeks later in the 16th. Point 2, which is the Battlegrounds patch, probably 2 weeks later than that in the 30th. And we know that the MMR reset is coming in August, which they told the Lobby Legends players. So it's not going to be next month, September. So probably Tuesday the 30th. And then we'll get another balance window on the 13th and probably the mini set September the 27th. You get the idea. So this will probably be fixed end of the month. Just be aware of that. All right, speaking of things that will be fixed, there are some known issues and bugs. We're going to talk about the ones that have already been fixed, talk about the ones that are noted, and then talk about the ones that we know about that aren't on the list. So there was a bug about Moonlit Guidance that was introduced in the last hotfix. They hotfixed the hotfix. However, we talked about that last week. However, the hotfix needed another hotfix. So they hotfixed the hotfix because Moonlit Guidance wasn't working to draw the second copy of Transform cards and Choose One cards. I guess both. Druid of the Reef and Guff were specific examples that if you played them, you wouldn't draw the original because the entities changed. So they fixed that. They hotfixed the hotfix, and it's now fully fixed and no longer hot. Sir Finley has been returned to Mercenaries. His tasks weren't working, so they put it back. He should be back there. My understanding is that the Sunken City game board is still erroneously available in Arena, which impacts specifically Transfer Student, which is Arena players. I don't mean to make fun, but this is objectively funny. But they're gonna fix it soon.
What does Transfer Student even do on the Sunken City board?
On all the new boards, it's discover a card from that expansion.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Anything that was after it rotated out of standard is always discover a card from this expansion. So it's not forever work for them. And they don't update the art or whatever, which I know they did for the Corrupted one, which was kind of cool. So the Piranha Swarmer had a bug where sometimes they wouldn't self-buff. It turns out it was Primordial Wave. it would break after you summon effects, your fish wouldn't grow anymore. I don't know how they figured that out. Kind of funny, but they fixed it. They also fixed Murloc Holmes on day one was doing like Nelly Bug-esque crashes, where it was doing the, it would lock up the game for both players. They fixed that the first day. Didn't tell anybody about it, but they fixed it. There are some issues with Darius Crowley and duels in general. Some of the banned duels cards are in some buckets, and also Darius Crowley's cannons aren't great at dealing with locations. It's a new world. We all have to deal with it. Darius Crowley has not adapted. They are working on it. In addition, there are 2 bugs, one of which is way less standard relevant, is not even a bug in standard, which I'm going to have a diatribe about, and one of which is really important that you should know about. We're going to do the important one first. Twin Bow collateral damage. Twin Bow Terracoil, the card from Voyage to Sunken City. The 4-mana 4/4 Naga. If you cast a spell while holding this battle cry, the next spell you cast twice. If you played this with Piercing Shot, it would deal 6 extra damage to the same target without checking for death states, and then do the total damage. If you hit a 1/1, it would deal 11, right? Because it would overflow for 5, then shoot another Piercing Shot at it. Collateral damage does not work this way. I don't know how it's supposed to work, but it doesn't work that way. And we know for sure that at least some of how it's working now is definitely messed up. But the way Twin Bow Collateral works is that it picks 3 targets. It can overflow damage, but when you double it, it doesn't double the total damage. It just doubles the overflow damage. So if you hit 3 1/1s with collateral damage, if those were all piercing shots, it would be 12 damage to each of them, and they'd each deal you 11. That's 33, right? Follow my math?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Instead, it deals 30 because it overflowed for 5 damage 3 times, 15, and then it doubled it. It's off by 3 because it only doubles the overflow damage. If you hit 3 2/2s on piercing shot, that would be 30 damage. Here, it's 4 overflow damage on 3 minutes, that's 12, you would take 24. So it's compoundingly worse because it only doubles the extra, which I think is incorrect, but I don't know. But it doesn't work the way the other card does. In addition, there is a legitimate super duper messed up bug. If you Twin Bow Collateral and there are more than 3 minions on the other side of the board, the overflow damage from the first cast gets added in addition to the overflow damage in the second cast. So if there are 3 1/1s, your opponent takes 30. If there are 4, they take 45. Because I would bet there is a parentheses in the wrong place. It just adds the damage from the first one to the second one by mistake. 100% above.
Yeah, it sounds like an order of
above.
operations type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. They'll fix it, I'm sure. Parentheses in the wrong place. That's my guess. I don't know what the script looks like. But if you have more than 3 minions in play, and you get Twin Bow Collateraled, and you're like, where does this damage come from? It's a bug. They know about it. They're working on it. Just be aware.
I, by nature of conceding, was like, well, my opponent has a bunch of volatile skeletons. I'm going to die to the death rattles. But here's my twin bowed collateral damage. And it was a tie because they died.
Yeah. And Collateral's like, it's a good card, and it probably is lethal enough when you Twin Bow it normally. But the extra damage will matter against Renathal decks. Specifically, I think Renathal, Mage, or Shaman would be the place where I'd bet it'd come up more. I hope they fix it soon. And I also hope they make it work like Piercing Shot, where it actually deals 6 extra damage to the minions, but doesn't randomly do triple. Yeah. There is also, we were being told in chat by DCU that DracoCat said there is a bug with Sinful Brand. I don't think that will come up unless you were DracoCat. If you have Sinful Brand in your deck, the best bug fix is probably cut that card from your deck. It's awful. But apparently when the minion dies, it doesn't deal the damage. There's also Murlocula. Okay. I'm going to avoid going too deep in the weeds here on how Infuse and Corrupt work. I'm going to avoid too much. But if you get Celestial Alignmented, or if you get Far Watch Post or whatever, and then your Murlocula after Infuse costs 1 mana, that is intended. That's how it's supposed to work. It is not a bug. Because of how Infuse and Corrupt work, it's a card with 2 entities, like a double face card in Magic the Gathering or something like that, where it has 2 states, and when you hit the trigger, the state transfers, but it doesn't lose enchantments, the same way that Tradable doesn't lose enchantments when you trade it back into the deck, because they don't want Corrupt and Infuse cards to be completely at odds with every hand buff card in existence, and every cost reduction card, etc., etc. So, if you try this with Strongman, which is supposed to work the same way, Strongman will drop the buffs. Strongman is bugged. The same way that Nitro Boost Poison and Dreaming Drake were back in the day. Whereas you remember you would keep them if you corrupt them off Secret Passage because the corrupting was accidentally transforming them instead of converting the state. It would drop the buffs. It's supposed to keep them. Strongman will cost 1. Strongman will effectively get nerfed because of this, but the way Murloculous is working in Standard is the correct way. Chalky backed me up. Big trust. So, if you think your Murloculous is bugged, it's not just how Infuse works. If you want more details, you can find me in the CoinKC Discord where I will explain all this in a nauseating length to you, but it is not necessary here on an audio format podcast. All right. In addition, some very sad news. I mean, good for him. Good for the gaming world. But Atesh, who's been on the show a couple times, been on Duels podcasts, one of the most prolific Duels developers, he is leaving the Hearthstone team after 6 years to move to unannounced survival game. So Atesh, you are wonderful. We will miss you. They are super lucky to have you. We've been lucky to have you. Can't wait to see what you do. But man, it's not going to be the same without you around, and I hope you don't be a stranger to the Hearthstone world.
Hopefully we'll still get some tweets now and then about how he's playing Duels and, having a good time or whatever.
Yeah. And I mean, Duels is still in good hands. Like, this is not like when Joe, like we were talking about this, in our show chat earlier. Like, this is not when Joe Mag left and he was the one doing Tavern Brawls, and then Tavern Brawls kind of stagnated for like a year. Like, the Duels, Brad is still there. Matt London has got a good handle on the format. I have all confidence that Duels will be just fine after Atesh leaves. I mean, obviously, would we love to have Atesh working on it? Of course, but it's time to share him with with some of the other games in the company, and I think the Duels is in a really good spot right now, and I think it'll continue to be in a good spot. But I will miss being able to yell at Atesh when he gives me a why not bucket with 3 Murloc Homes in it.
Yes. You know what? Just yell at him anyway.
I could. I mean, it's probably his fault regardless, but
Probably. So, outside of, new expansion releasing, that's all the news we have right now. Are we doing this tournament section? Are we doing this?
We can. We don't. I mean, we can just talk about decks if you want to. I mean, Grandmasters last call week 2 happened. There were Habu Gabu brought XL Quest Warrior. The 2 players who brought Paladin.
Nope, that wasn't supposed to happen.
Okay. The 2 players who brought Paladin met in the finals. The end.
Okay, wait, hold on.
We'll see.
Abbreviated tournament section. Tournament's over! Yay!
Yay, we did it.
Just the toot. That's the important part. Yeah. All right. So, where are we? Oh yeah, explanations. Let's go.
So we kind of mentioned most of this stuff at the top of the show. I would say probably top decks, at least in terms of play, right? Imp Warlock, Skeleton Mage, plus Wildfire, I think, is the decided upon version. And then Druid, Ramp Druid, Denathrius Druid. It's with or without Torpor. I guess you just have Torpor.
Just 1 card, right? It's 1 card in a 40 card deck. You may as well, right?
Yeah. Although there's
you
not-
don't have to build around it too hard. You just kind of
Yeah.
throw it in there, and then it's just kind of, in there.
It's asking you to play nature spells. You're kind of gonna do that anyway.
Yeah.
Although I think it is surprising sometimes to see the number that are not, right? Like Aquatic Form and Moonlit Guidance are not nature. So it's really the fact that it's running like the new deal 2 make a treant, and then from core you've got the deal 2 or make 2 1/1s, so those are nature.
You run Planted Evidence. The Discover a spell, it costs 2 less
Right.
this turn.
Yep.
Natural causes too.
But scale isn't nature, right?
No,
It's-
Scale's
although-
not nature.
Scale don't need no
Mir-
help. Scale doing just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miracle Growth is nature, though.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Yep. There's enough going on here that like especially with Widowbloom Seedsman, it's not too hard
Would not
to
draw a nature spell, by the way. Like,
That's-
I don't know why it does.
because it's cards
'Cause
really
it's Druid.
strong. Yeah. So
I think what's surprised me about, or not surprised me, but what has occasionally been frustrating is if your approach to fighting druids is, I'm going to snowball an early minion and run you over, that doesn't necessarily work the way it once did because they have living roots and the deal to make a 2/2 treant. So it's not like you can just screw them with a Trog as easily.
Well, it depends on the size of your early minion.
Yeah.
it's if your early minion is a Bloodbound Imp that you then via library, you're going to be fine. It's the Imp Warlock matchup is somewhere in the 70s against Druid. So like it depends on how you snowball.
Sure.
Or rather how quickly, but yeah, on HS Replay, the matchup is 75.66% in the favor of the Imp Warlock against Ramp Druid, 78% against Celestial Druid. You know, early days, small sample size, blah blah blah, whatever. Imp Warlock beats Druid. That is a factual statement. That's not a thing that is really up for debate. It's, you know, don't run cards in the Druid deck trying to beat this Zoo deck because there's just no point in band-aiding the Bullet Wound.
Yeah, you just can't sit around and ramp for 3 turns and then expect to be able to crawl back because like Scale's not enough at that point. And you know, I mean, even Flipper Friends is like too little by the time that you get to play it. Like that's something that you can sometimes get, you know, kind of claw your way back with Flipper Friends. Those otters still make the saddest noise when they die, and it makes me sad. But
No.
but it's you know, but I mean, even then, right? Like, it's just not enough, and they just make more. And that was I was actually playing Druid, I don't know, 2 days ago, and I was doing really well with it, and then I stopped for the night, and I came back the next day, and everybody was playing Warlock, and I lost all the stars that I'd gotten. So it was and Ramp Druid is, I think No Hands Gamer tweeted, it's like it's at 48% globally. Like it's an okay deck. I mean, 48% is something that you can improve with skill on the deck, but it's below 50%. It's a deck that you play if you really want to play it, and people enjoy playing that kind of deck, but it's not as oppressive as, like, you know, Kazakhstan Druid was, for example.
So I'm not disagreeing with you in the global win rate, but just saying I have it currently filtered right at this moment to last 1 day Diamond through Legend. I'm just going to do 1 day, right? Ramp Druid here, 47.8% expected win rate. If I remove Imp Warlock, it goes to 53%. So it is being held down by one very particular factor. And if you remove that factor, Ramp Druid has some other matchups that aren't as great. Naga Priest, the other hard counter there. If you remove Naga Priest, you get pretty high up there. It's go wide snowball decks, and there aren't that many right now. Imp Warlock in particular is keeping pressure on Ramp Druid, which is why they need to be really, really careful about how they nerf. Really, really careful, because you can't overdo it here. Can't underdo it, can't overdo it. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. We should talk about Imp Warlock specifically first. We should talk about this first.
Yeah.
This is the most popular deck on ladder. It is at most brackets the game, the best deck. This is not a historical outlier the way that we have seen before, but it's still pretty clearly too good.
It feels like it, right? Because he high rolls hard.
Yeah.
And like the games that you lose like what direction did the truck just come from?
Yeah. It's powerful deck. right? Catastrophe library, very, very powerful. We know that. Not a mystery. We called it before the expansion. I think most people, myself included, put catastrophe above library. I'm not going to say that catastrophe is a bad card. That's not what I'm saying. Just that the games where you face or play library as the zoo versus the games that you don't, night and day difference. Huge, huge difference.
Well, and I think what strikes me is the curve of one drop. Honestly, any one drop, but in particular, we'll say the 1/3 that gets +1 attack for each imp. And then you go library on 2. And if that one drop has lived and you play Fiendish Circle on 3, it now gets at minimum +5/+5 stats.
Plus the
If
4 from the
the-
imps. It attacks for 10.
Right. If it's
Yeah,
that
yeah.
1/3 specifically, it gains the 5 attack. Yeah. So it just suddenly you're getting hit like a truck. Doesn't matter if you're a Renathal deck, whatever. Like these things are sticking around, and I think it's really challenging to deal with both a really big minion and also you do need to get rid of those 1/1s because otherwise it's gonna happen again on whatever is left. So Vile Library has definitely stuck out for me as just like you just take so much damage so quickly. And I think with the buff to Fiendish Circle makes it fit in that curve like so smoothly. Remember, Fiendish Circle used to cost 4. It was terrible. And then the only reason it's being run now is because of these strong synergy cards. If Library costs 3, you couldn't as easily do that curve of just library, Fiendish Circle, hit like a truck on turn 3.
Yeah.
But
I mean, even if you don't have a minion stick, right? Like you're still giving
yeah,
you're still giving a
make
huge buff to
minion.
one of those 4 imps. And that's
Yeah,
still
yeah.
a minion that your opponent is probably not equipped to deal with like on turn 3.
Yeah, and I've seen people just go, they don't even have the Fiendish Circle, right? It's just 1 drop library on 2, and then on 3 they play, Wicked Shipment, or just like 1 other imp or 2 other imps, like even just 1 other imp. Say you went Flame Imp, and then you play another imp on 3, and you... actually, even if you just Flame Imp on 1 and then activate Library on 2, you're attacking with a 5/4.
Yeah.
Because it gives +1/+1 base and then +1/+1 because it's an imp. So
Yeah.
I've seen people do that before. I think that's something that kind of, I don't know if this is the direction they would take, but it does strike me as sort of like, this is maybe tuned a little high. The fact that both Library and Catastrophe read do a thing and then repeat for each imp instead of do this thing for each imp. Because right now they do something if you have no imps in play. But I think both of those cards, you're never going to use them if you have no imps in play.
I mean, the catastrophe, you might discover it, right? Like you might get it from like a school teacher or something like that. I can understand the argument for catastrophe. Like there's no way to discover a location, at least currently. So like the Vile Library probably doesn't need that.
Right. But it just sort of feels like it's an extra +1/+1 or an extra card on something that already does a lot.
It's insult to injury, right? Like that's
Yeah,
basically what it is.
It's the injury. That card injures me. I don't feel insulted. I feel injured by the large pile of stats.
I guess we would need Vulgar Homunculus for it to be adding insult to injury.
Which I think is that in core? It might be. I don't
No.
know. No.
Otherwise,
Oh god, that would be in this deck if it was.
Right,
if it
that
was.
rotated. Yeah. And it's also shout out to M King Rafam. When that card is infused and on curve, you either have
I've
Snowfall or
never
you
seen it.
lose. You have Snowfall or you lose.
I also did not realize from reading the card that it buffs all the imps, not just the ones that it revived.
Oh, you didn't know? Yeah.
I did not know that. I found that out the hard way. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
The
the card.
have never
M
beaten
King
that on curve.
Rafam. M King Rafam is the 4th highest mulligan win rate card in the deck with a 60% keep rate.
And that's a 6-drop.
This is Dark Forged Cariel. Like it's the most expensive card in the deck that you probably keep. Like, he has a very high mulligan win rate with a respectable keep rate. Via Library is obviously the best. Impending Catastrophe, not that great in the stats.
Well,
Interesting.
you want to top deck it, right?
It has a low drawn win rate. It's in the middle of the deck
It does
in
need setup,
mulligan
right?
and
Like,
drawn.
You can't just like play it like on curve a lot of the time unless you specifically went like Wicked Shipment on 1. And if you top deck it, like if you top deck it late if your opponent somehow managed to run you out of stuff, it's probably
I
not
mean,
helping you.
It's
My explanation would be because if you need to play it, then you're against something that can actually deal with what you're doing.
Right.
And if you don't, they've already died or very nearly.
Yeah. You need more people to play it, when they're going to win anyway, just to get the played win rate up.
It's so. I mean, I'm gonna go for a simpler explanation here. Zoo has been good when it's had burst and bad when it doesn't, no matter how much it draws. I wouldn't be surprised if you pull back Library if Catastrophe falls in line. It feels really powerful when you're playing against it, but there are a lot of things that feel really powerful and don't win games in current standard. Library is the thing that I lose to, right? Like, Zoo can go wide and refill over and over again, and I can lose to Impending Catastrophe when I'm playing bad decks, but I lose to Library when I'm playing good decks. And it's okay for bad decks to lose sometimes. But Library is a clear statistical outlier. It is the number 1 card in mulligan and drawn win rate. I know played win rate doesn't matter, but it's number 2 in played win rate because it's played more, only behind Shady Bartender, which, the Arbor up is good in games you win. But, yeah, the Library is the highest mull win rate, the highest drawn win rate, the only positive drawn win rate card in the deck. I am unsurprised that this is a clear outlier. And the rest of the deck, like, it feels like Zoo. I'm glad Zoo is back. It's just, this is really, really efficient and also suddenly has a bunch of burst damage. And it's not like Doomguard. This is 2 times on anything you let stick. So it's really, really hard. Like, if I see a single 1/1, and I can either set up a 2-turn or I can trade, that's a tough decision. Because if I don't trade, I'm probably dead.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the things that drew me to Wig Priest, because like I would just start keeping Magic Hexen in the opening hand. And then they would, Vile Library something. I would Magic Hexen Hexen whatever the big thing was, Shadow Word Devour to clear the rest of the board, and then, then the game ends. Right. And I had somebody asking me on Twitter, like, why are you keeping Magic Hexen? I'm like, because it wins against Warlock. That's why. Like, oh, I don't think it's gonna live long enough. Like, the things that aren't getting buffed are tiny, and you can often just kill them with Devour. But like, there are not a lot of decks that can deal with the big thing and the small things all at the same time. Like, that's hard to do because you're just kind of like staving off the inevitable for 2 turns if you can't then deal with the rest of the board that's left there. And the rest of the minions are not small all the time. Like, you have Mischievous Imp, or you have, the one that summons X number of 3/2s or whatever. Those still hurt. Like, they're not hitting you for like 8, but they still hurt and they add up.
Yeah, it's. I like that they're exploring new space for Zoo. I like that they're going with, like, let's try demon buffs and make them work finally. But this is just not enough work. I want them to work for it to make it work.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more. However, we have other decks to talk about. And the class that has the most high-performing decks, Hunter. Hunter's really good.
This
Really,
is what
really
I
good.
eventually hit Legend with, was just playing Face Hunter, and it felt good. I tried making my own version, messing around, actually not using Wild Seeds, just sort of still doing the twin bow collateral damage towards the top end, but I really like the location, and I like Crooked Cook. But I think it's just kind of, I don't know, maybe you're better in some matchups, worse in others. I'm really surprised that the Wild Seed Hunter does not run the location, though, because it synergizes so well with Wild Seeds.
Yeah, but you just get the 3/1 rush a lot of the time anyway. Right?
We're already playing Doggy Biscuit gives health. Ramming Mount has other texts. And Kennels doesn't give rush to non-beasts. So if you're not hitting...
That has not mattered to me. I would do things like coin cook into Kennels, give +2 attack, and you're drawing a card.
Yeah. You also
I
have
think
board space issues, though, right?
Just
Like,
3 instances of... That's the thing that makes the most sense to me, is the board space issues for Wild Seeds. But
Yeah.
I think, in general, as a give 3 things +2 attack, it's felt great.
It's not a bad card. Hunter doesn't have bad cards in Standard right now. Hunter
That's
has...
kinda true.
Their average card quality is low-key higher than Druids, though I will say Wild Spirits as a card. This is it summons 2 Wild Seeds and then makes all your
oh, yeah. Oh.
It daylight savings time for all of your Wild Seeds. They wake up a turn earlier. It is unbelievable. It is extremely powerful. It's not just the poacher curve. Coin Wild Spirits on 2 is really, really strong. Twin Bow into Wild Spirits on 5 is super good.
That's gross. It's gross.
Super
Yeah.
duper good. It's just so many numbers, and the balancing mechanism on Wild Seeds is the time it takes, and then you just don't do that anymore. And if you hit stags are so much damage. Just the 5/4 with the 4/2 weapon attached. The only way that's not too slow is with Wild Spirits. And then if you get a stag to wake up on turn 4, then you just smash people. They just die. And Lepton is asking in chat, does Wild Spirits go in Quest Hunter? In the rank 1 Legends list, yes, it is there. It is in, if you are running a Hunter deck, and Wild Spirits is not in your deck is misbuilt. It's Poacher as well. They are both really, really important, because they're just good. Stag Charge is solid. The worst Wild Seed card is easily Erelon, and he's still fine.
Yeah, I mean, you run Stag Charge in Quest Hunter just because it's damage, right? And it's damage that could translate into more damage. And if you're doing that, then you may as well run the Wild Spirits at that point. Like,
And Wild Spirits is nature. Makes your multicasters better.
there you go.
Yes. Yep. It's so looking at the most popular Quest Hunter list, which is less popular. In Quest Hunter, the number 1 mulligan win rate card is Wild Spirits.
Wow.
The number
That's something.
2 is Stag Charge. Stag Charge is the second best mulligan win rate card in Quest Hunter.
That's
3
wild.
mana, deal 3, summon a Wild Seed. Yeah. It's pretty incredible. Yeah. Number 3, Dunbalder Bunker. Jeez.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah. It's really
Like,
something.
Dunbalder was the clear winner
Yeah.
for the longest time, but...
It's-
Jeez. And
By the way, this is not surprising to me, but I find it funny. The worst mulligan win rate card, Prince Renethal, with
Well,
a 3.5% keep rate.
I would like to have a conversation with some of these people.
So
Like,
about
yeah.
1 out of every 30 people is keeping Prince Renethal.
So 1 out of 30
Why?
people is disconnecting after they've started the game before their mulligan is done.
Tracker wouldn't recognize it. Tracker wouldn't see it if you're disconnected.
Or they get up to go pee and didn't get back in time. That
No.
it would recognize.
Do Prince
Sometimes
Renethal Quest Hunter
people-
players have a UTI collectively?
Sometimes people just take a deck list because they're like, oh, I want to play this. And then they think, oh, I want to curve out. This is where, like, you need
Yeah.
to learn how the deck is played, right?
That one costs 3. I'll keep that
Hold the
one.
list.
Yeah, that looks good.
Yeah.
It is the lowest keep rate in the deck, but the numbers above 0 just... What's happening here? I'd like to know.
I think the AFK is the most plausible solution.
Yeah.
This has 3,900 games. Like, there are hundreds of games.
Listen,
What?
Hat, Hearthstone players like their sandwiches. Okay?
You're actually more likely to win if you just keep a freezing trap and run it out on 2. You're actually more likely to win. Anyways. Okay. Where was I? Why are they keeping the spider thing? All right. So, Face Hunter's really, really good. In addition, you've probably seen Skeleton Mage. You've definitely seen Skeleton Mage. So remember how everyone said, why did they nerf Deathborn to 6? It's not going to be playable? That was incorrect. And also, this card at 5 would have been unbelievably toxic. Thank goodness they didn't let that happen. They didn't let us curve location activate into cold case into location activate Deathborn. Would have been disgusting. Yeah, but deck is good. The Wildfire build is the go-to at the moment because you get a bunch of 8 damage things that end the game. This is the one deck that, even though you could probably infuse Denathrius, we got 2 at 8. We don't need a 10. We don't need another thing here. You just get to do the Wildfire stuff that we know and love. And then you also get to top out with Dawngrasp Hero, which is really, really, really powerful right now with the scaling hero power that beats like a lot of decks by itself. And Mordresh. And Kel'Thuzad.
I think Savara is sort of low-key one of the better cards.
She's very, very good here.
Depends what spells you're starting out with, but just getting extra wildfires, extra cold case is another big one. Just super, super clutch. So it's kind of cool to see that even though, Naga Mage isn't a thing, at least some of the stronger Nagas are seeing some play. And yeah, there are times where it's just like Wildfire on one, and I already know I'm on the back foot, and then they Savara and get another, and I'm just like, oh, great. Well, now, even if they don't find the hero, they've got just two mana, deal 3 damage constantly.
Yeah. And this is the version that's not running all the fire spells. Like, it's not running First Flame, it's not running Fire Sale, which does make your multicaster worse, but it makes Savara better. Because the spells that you're getting, like, you're never getting a second Flame out of Savara. Right, you're never getting like jank off a Rune Door out of Savara. You're getting the spells that you want to be in the deck. Generally getting the spells that you put in the deck: Wildfire, AI, Flurry, Deathborn, like the important spells. Those are the ones that you're getting.
Yeah, well, and I think I sort of prefer this list because I like being able to play Magister Dawngrasp and not feel like I'm rolling the dice of where my spells are going to target. And so since you only have Wildfire as your fire and Arcane as your Arcane Intellect as your Arcane, like, it's very predictable what you're going to be recasting from your Magister Dawngrasp, whereas the other ones, it's like, well, Rune Door goes somewhere and First Flame goes somewhere.
Yeah, I like being better against imps. I like that. I think it's a sacrifice worth making.
And I like my multicaster drawing more than one card.
I am surprised not to see Fire Sale in here. That is weird.
This is not the list that I would run. This is, I think, a slightly older list, but there are a bunch of different ways to... Yeah, exactly. It's not the list I would run. So there are a bunch of different ways to go with this list, and there are some that they're calling themselves Control Mage or whatever that don't run Kel'Thuzad. Most of them still run Cold Case. All of them run the location. If you're playing a mage deck, you're probably playing the location. If you're mech mage for some reason, you're probably not. But even then, I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah, honestly, like, I was playing a quest mage, and the location just makes it better, right? It gives you survivability, and I agree. Like, if you're playing mech mage, you might still run it.
Why not?
Because it's 3 volatile skeletons and 3 freezes, and hey, what's a great way to keep your opponent from dealing with your board? Freeze their best minion. As long as it's not a taunt, you just push through.
Yeah. It's location at 3 durability. I remember thinking it was really good at 2.
Yeah. And like, if you're playing any sort of board-based deck, like, especially like, one that's going in on a big minion, like, you just never get to attack if they get that down. Like, yeah, it's like, and like, oh, why are there cooldowns? Like, thank God that they had that revelation in design, right? Because you could have just imagined if this got to free something every turn, like, Reddit would be on fire. Like, it would just, there's no way. So that's like the only respite. But even then, it's like, even then, it still feels oppressive when you know that they're gonna get to freeze like 2 more things over the next 4 turns, and like, if they clear your board, then they get the reset anyway. And yeah, it's
Yep.
a lot.
And you also do a ton of chip damage. And there are some lists out there that are playing Frozen Touch, and you infuse Frozen Touch over and over and over and over again if you want to. Because Steve, you were trying it out for a while, and there were a lot of games where it was one Frozen Touch dealt like 15.
And then you sometimes get it out of Savara. You'll get an infused one out of Savara, and now you have more Frozen Touches. And there were some games that was day one, and it was just like, I'm just sitting here with 3 Frozen Touches in my hand.
Oh,
As
yeah, you
long
were
as I
against
don't
that
die.
shaman. They
Yeah.
were at 18, and you had 3 infused Frozen Touches in your hand on turn 7. You're just like, okay, touch, 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 go.
Yeah,
They're at
like
9.
you're not killing me. I'm not
Yeah.
dying. Like I'm just gonna.
You were at
chuck-
35 because you were Renethal.
Right, because obviously. So I'm just gonna chuck snowballs at your face, and and what's up? Like, what are you gonna do?
Die.
And I mean, because when it's lethal, it's the same thing as the wigs. You can throw the green Frozen Touches at your opponent's face if it's for lethal, because you don't need another copy if they're dead.
I'm so proud. I'm so proud in this moment. Okay.
Come a long way. We'll see what
And-
we'll see what happens when you play Control Priest next. You'll return the
That's-
favor.
Luckily, that doesn't and won't exist in this meta, so I will control them with wigs. It'll be fine. And finally, to round out the clearly known good classes, we got Shaman. And Shaman has a bunch of different ways to go. I remain very pleased with the overall design of Shaman because it is a flexible class with a wide variety of cards you can play and a lot of cool options, a lot of different things to do, and also Snowfall Guardian, which is a very fixable problem. But Evolve Shaman, I'm not going to say there aren't high rolls with this deck because Goldshire Knoll and Muck Pools, like, yes, there can be high rolls. I'm not going to tell you it's not going to happen. I'm going to say it doesn't feel like Mogu. I said that in Theory Crafting. I'll say that again today. The high rolls are few and far between, and it is much, much more common to see incremental advantage over time, right? Crud Caretaker, really nice with Muck Pools, but this list doesn't even run Vosh. You don't even run it because it's not that great, right? It's only good with the Evolve stuff. Crud Caretaker gives you a taunt. You play Convincing Disguise, which targets, but you don't really need or want Vosh. You don't have to have it. Now, you can if you want to. Tiny Toy is still good. But you just also get to play the cool Shaman cards. They all run schooling.
Caretaker is disgusting with Bolner, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a lot of... That's like a Dark Fiend for Shadow Walt sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like what Shaman does, and also it does Snowfall Guardian. So, just fix that, and then we'll get to play Shaman. It'll be cool and fun. But otherwise...
On this, I feel like a Snowfall Guardian is one thing, but usually it's not like one board freeze that is the issue. It is the chain.
Yeah.
So what would you think of, rather than affecting Snowfall Guardian, which they already set to 6, what if they put Macaw to only doing the battle cries that cost 5 or less?
Probably better. Probably a smarter decision. Because also then that stops Denathrius, right? Like, if you want
And
to limit
Mutinist.
Denathrius. And, yeah. It is a somewhat dramatic change to how the card works. It would confuse people and they would get yelled at. And it's probably the best change. Probably the best one. Because you're right, it is the chain freeze that is the major problem. If it is Snowfall Pass, whatever. It's always the third one that pisses me off. Like,
Yeah,
the second one annoys... The first one annoys me. The second one frustrates me. The third one, like, I am pissed off. So, yeah, I would be amenable to that adjustment. It is more involved than what they usually do, but we've seen this team make some involved changes. Like, Nelly got a completely new text box. Kazakusan got a completely new text box. Crab Rider got a battle cry to gain Wind Fury, which, like... They do some weird stuff. I could see it.
Lucia got effectively deleted from the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had to, but yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, Cantaloupe had tweeted that was what he was looking for too. I think it's a reasonable change that makes sense and very clearly targets what they wanted to target, but still lets you do some goofy stuff with Clownfish and School Teacher and whatever. Like, you can do the value stuff. You just can't do the game-ending stuff. Still copies Theatar, but as a reminder, do not Bolner your Theatar. It's a bad idea. Wacky stuff happens. All right.
Yeah.
Now, an unsung hero of this expansion. Well, Steve has already sung it, and I kept singing. I was the backup singer. Is Naga Priest, which you add in Pelagos, you add in the location, throw in some card from the new expansion that costs 4 mana, and baby, you got a stew going.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it, pretty much at length. I mean, like again, the reason that I started playing it was because I was running into it as Druid and getting wrecked, and then I saw that it had a reasonable, win rate against Warlock. Like, okay, well, if those are two things that I'm interested in beating, and I know how to play the deck. Like, this is, we've done a whole episode on how to play Wig Priest, and if you are new to it, you probably want to go back and listen to that. Because the play pattern doesn't really change that much. It's a little bit different in that you're not like all in on Wig. Like I will keep things in the mulligan when I don't have Wig now, where in the last meta I would full toss just finding Wig, because if you didn't find Wig, then you would just be lost. Now you have game if you don't find Wig. It's not easy, but like the games where like both Wigs are in the bottom 15 are not like completely write-offs, right? Like you can
I posted a replay in the Coin Conceit Discord yesterday where I was against a control priest for whatever reason. Both of my Wigs were bottom 5, and I killed them from 30.
Yeah.
They left up 1-3-5. A single 3-5, and then died.
Yeah. And Nagic Hexen is just like, it's still really good. I forgot to say, I got to Nagic Hexen a Spitelash Siren today.
Today? What year is it?
Well, Evolve Shaman, right? So they evolved into a Spitelash Siren. So I took it. Chad had to remind me. Like, it had been so long that I'd forgotten about it. Like, oh, you can take the Siren and just start like, that's right. I have Nagas in my hand. I can do that. So they left it up. They traded off everything else and left the Siren up. And I'm like, you know what this card does, right? Like, like it was, and they didn't get another turn after that.
No,
but
they did not.
Yeah, but I mean, you could, because the thing is that Nagic Hexen just like, and again, you want to hit rushes, you want to hit taunts, ideally. Again, the big thing off of Warlock, you want to take. You can generally buff it. You have more options to buff it up now. With having Boon is a little bit later, but you can still do that. And also, being able to hit that with the Cathedral is also really good. Just being able to give it a little bit extra health, or at least like make your opponent trade, give something up if they're trading it off. But Nagic Hexen alone is just wins games sometimes. And also like Samuro is way easier to activate with the Cathedral. Like you can get it to do 3 across the board on 4 mana, which usually like you had to wait until 6 to be able to bless it, and then you were using up a bless, and now you're just using up a charge at Cathedral. So like everything just feels like it works a little bit better.
There's not as much rush in this meta, so it is very easy to just take something and just keep it, or trade with it. Like if you want to, you can take a Volatile Skeleton. If they go turn 3 activate, and your turn 4 you're like, all right, screw it. Nagic the Skeleton that you just spawned, that's your only minion. If they play a multicast, you just trade into it. Probably kill it. What are they going to do? It's fine. Like, it's not ideal. There have been a bunch of times I've been against a Shaman. They take a School Teacher. Okay. It's fine. It's acceptable. You can, against Zoo, if you manage to get on board and they have 1 minion left, if you take it, they can't do anything. Can't do anything. It's just yours now. So yeah, it's Nagic Hexen, good card. Samuro, good card. Pelagos,
Pelagros, yeah, that's right. It's
filthy.
Really good. Yeah. Yep. I think the one thing with this deck that's a little bit different is that it's way more important to get on board and not try to, squeeze out value. Like if you have an Amalgam on 2, you just play the Amalgam on 2. Like don't worry about the value. I know, right?
I'm so
I've
happy
seen the
right
light.
now. Just play your cards.
Yeah.
Just play cards.
Yeah, because you have enough things that can turn those into value anyway, and like especially like against a warlock, like or a hunter, like you have to be on board first.
Yeah,
If you are not on board and you don't have stuff to trade, you are just gonna lose.
I draw the line. Probably don't tempo Valish. Probably just we can hold back
Yeah.
Valish. You're not gonna play a Tiny Fin.
Yeah, but I mean there have been games where I went like Slither Spear, Coin, Wig, Valish, Wig, and that
Sure.
was that was fine. Like that was a perfectly cromulent turn 1 play.
Yes.
But yeah.
If it's turn 1 and you have a Valish and you don't have a 1-drop, you can keep that one in the tank. I'll leave it up to
Yes.
like maybe you have Valish Wig into Amalgam and you're going first. Okay, we can talk about it. I can see that. Valish, no Wig, no 1-drop. Hold it back. Hold it back. I'm going to say it. Don't develop that in 1. And the last major deck that we've alluded to multiple times but haven't shown you the list or really gone into the details is the Denathrius Druid, which reminds me a lot of Launch Voyage Druid, but it is way worse. This is a below 50% win rate deck because of the existence of Zoo, but it still feels pretty powerful to face. And it is, again, inexpensive survival tools and a win condition that doesn't take up a lot of deck slots makes the deck pretty efficient. And Scale of Onyxia, we talk about it most weeks. This week is no exception. Since they printed that card, Druid has been really, really strong. And as a reminder, for all you Guff Nerf stumpers out there, at the launch of Alterac, in the first 2 months of Alterac, Ramp Druid was a 48% win rate deck that was highly popular, and Guff was a mulligan win rate outlier, but the deck was not a power outlier, and then they printed Scale and Kazakhstan, and it all went to hell. So, then they nerfed Kazakhstan, Scale still good. It makes Celestial Alignment palatable. That's fixable, but these survival tools at 7 mana always would have made this deck a thing, and I expect that to continue, especially with how efficiently both Scale and Topior infuse your Denathrius. It's very easy to get, very big numbers. Very big.
Well, and I think what has made this more frustrating to play against has been the development of, as you mentioned, Denathrius taking up very few slots in terms of commitment. You run Denathrius and you run Mine to draw him. They now run 1 to 2 copies of the Infuse card where you eat a minion, and if it's infused, you eat its neighbors.
Insatiable Devourer.
That card is a house.
Now, I will point out, if you sort the deck by drawn win rate, Insatiable Devourer near the top of the list. Also, if you sort the deck by turn played, near the top of the list, because Devourer is riding on Scale's shoulders, because the only way that you get to turn 9 is by ramping and scaling, and then Devourer is the nail in the coffin. Now, it is good when you get there. It does allow you to turn the corner, but this is not just against Vile Library decks. It is exceptional against Snowfall Guardians. Very good in that matchup. Also, not so bad against Naga Priest either. If you can't lethal them, probably don't go in, because they gonna get big. Ain't not gonna be fun. Especially if they have an Earthen Scales on top of it.
I ended up facing a 23-28 Devourer today, and I could have booned it and made a taunt, and I just decided that I would let them have that because that was a better use of my time at that point.
Yeah. It now becomes this tricky game of, okay, well, I'm trying to make a big enough board that Scale can't clear it, but if they've already had some time, they may have infused one of the Devourers, and so your big play to try and not get cleared by Scale means that your minions just get eaten. I think the one time that I was able to come back was a top deck Rakara, and I had just enough life to not die. But
oof, that's very funny.
But most of the time, it's just a pretty enormous blowout.
I mean, it's kind of like old Control Warrior, right? Where like you can't play just one minion because then you lose to Shield Slam, but you can't play a wide board because you lose to Brawl. So you're like trying to keep it to like 2 minions to not get blown out, but then that's not really enough to be able to pressure them, right? It's kind of the same thing, and like Druid's not supposed to have this much removal, right? Like Druid's supposed to be the class that goes big but doesn't have a lot of removal tools, and it's I mean, the problem is that any card that costs 8 or more is a Druid card now. Because like if without Guff, Insatiable Devourer would be kind of a tough sell, because like I mean it's still a good card there, but it's like you're still using your whole turn, and if you're not actually clearing the entire board, it does a lot, but it also isn't necessarily enough. But when you go up to 20 mana, who cares, right? Like that's like half your mana. Who cares? Just do it.
If your removal here was even Guardian Animals or Starfall or something, Devourer is a single target. It's Abominable Lieutenant, right? Like it's
Yeah.
the scale
It's
is
scale
really
and Flipper Friends and Topior
yeah.
and
Topia's
and
really
everything
powerful,
else.
but
Yeah.
it's the deck doesn't have that much removal. Just it has really consistent slots at each point in the game. Early game, you've got really consistent ways to find the thing you want with Jerry Rig, Moonlit Guidance, Aquatic Form. In the mid game, you've got a bunch of ramp options. You've got Guff, you've got Nourish, you've got Jerry for Nourish, you've got Seedsman, you've got Wild Growth. It's like what, 9 cards are ramp now?
That's a lot.
9 cards, not counting the search tools. You've got Scale, Flipper Friends, Topior. Miracle Growth kind of is a defense tool, kind of sort of. It's the worst one, but that's okay. And then, if you survive, you got Insatiable. And if
Rayboss Onyxia.
and Raid Boss and Nixia. And then you have Cold Tooth Mine to... Actually, I think they don't run Raid Boss and Nixia anymore, so Cold Tooth Mine always gets to Nathrius.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That was the one thing I didn't like when I was playing the deck. It's like, why I want to play Onyxia, but I also always want to draw Denathrius off of that.
Yeah, I think Onyxia has largely been cut now. And a lot of these lists have started running Theotar to get their own Denathrius back. because Hearthstone.
Yeah.
So yeah, looking at one of the more recent lists that I have here, there's a Theotar in it. Still runs Raid Boss on this one. I think that most.
Well,
of
the
them
one you
are
have
cutting
on
it,
screen has Theotar too.
yeah. And I think this one still has Kael'thas. There are some lists out there that are trying not running Kael'thas because, like you said, you don't need it. So
It's only if you're really like trying to turbo the combo, and even then you don't necessarily have it like infused enough that early. I mean, it's also worth pointing out, like Planted Evidence, there's a lot of like small removal in Druid's toolkit now that you can find with Planted Evidence to be able to kind of keep yourself, on board. Like you can find whatever the one is that does to summon Treant. You can find Wrath. You can find Living Roots. Like there's a lot of like small, like do 2 to 3 damage, get rid of a minion that could snowball with Planted Evidence while you're waiting to ramp. That also helps it a lot too.
Yep. And that's really the meta stuff that we're going to talk about. There are rogue experiments. There will be some games, listener. We talked about at the beginning. You will lose one game this week to a rogue that hits you with a dagger that is more like a sword. It's a double-digit attack number, probably turn 4 or 5, and you're going to say, how do they not talk about it? Go ahead and try that deck. Get back to us. It is not reliable. It is not easy to play.
Yeah.
And it's easily counterable by, like, a lot of things. It's really fun when it works. I've tried. I should probably have gotten to Legend first because I'm not Legend and I played a lot of Rogue. Draw your own conclusions. But not really going to talk about it at the moment because there's no advice we can give that wouldn't be total bait. You can play Quest Rogue and put in 2 Door of Shadows. Really strong. Really nice. Demon Hunter.
If you want to play big weapons, if you want to think people with big weapons, go play Monster Hunter. You'll have more fun.
Well, I will say Draka is a good card.
Yes.
Outside of whether you're trying to do those kinds of shenanigans, I ended up removing it for Theotar in the Thief build, but I do think that regardless of whether there is a miracle thing, Draka for a 3/3 dagger is fine. Draka for a 5/3 dagger is quite good. Like those sort of middle things, it's I wonder if we're gonna find at some point down the road, maybe not a thief rogue, but some kind of more just very tempo, like do stuff rogue, but you're not all in on the miracles. That just runs Draka because it's a good amount of damage for the rate. Because you can just go prep thing Draka, and that's solid.
You just need the power level of some of the other things to come down a little bit, right? Like I think maybe after the first
I don't
balance patch,
know.
that's the kind of thing that because that takes a few turns to set up, and you're having to kind of conserve your resources in order to get that to happen, right?
No, you really don't. I don't know. I think there's a lot of times where it's just like you are running prep, you are running reconnaissance, and like maybe you play one or two other things.
Bone Spike. Bone Spike.
Yep, Bone Spike
That
is
card's
great. Like,
rad. I love that card. It's so good.
or honestly, times later in the game, if you've got an infused Door of Shadows, I feel like a lot of people are playing Door of Shadows in decks where it's just never infused, right? It's just draw a spell. But when you infuse that and you hit something like a prep or something like a Bone Spike, you can pretty easily get a really strong Draka dagger. So I think you can just be doing other stuff earlier on, and then at some point you go infuse Door of Shadows, play a couple things, Draka, and you're hitting them with a 5/3 weapon. That's an Ashbringer. Like,
It's I want to go to there. I want there is gonna be at least one rogue deck that is a real thing. And I know for sure people are gonna bring rogue to the Masters Tour because it's a Masters Tour. What are pro players gonna do? Not play rogue? Have you met people who play this game professionally? They cannot
I mean,
stay
Boar
away.
Priest is the new rogue hat.
Thief still felt pretty solid, right? Again, you
It's
can
fine.
still low roll and things, but I killed a lot of people by doing the bunny hopper thing of taking a ring and doing extra wicked stabs for 6. So
Speaking my language, I'm here for it. I wish the jackpot became not good enough, and I hope that's what happens because that is not the part of rogue that I like. But I like the other parts. The wicked stab thing that you just said, I like that thing. I want to do that. I like that a lot. I like the stabbing. Demon Hunter. Sorry, buddy. Just don't. I've played a lot of the DH decks this expansion. Edelweiss, I know you tried. It's just not there. It's just not there. Relic of Dimensions is a really, really good card. Vault and Relic of Dimensions feels powerful. You have to run 26 other cards, and that's a bummer.
well, and the relic that makes minions, like all of them, once you get to the later upgraded stages, feel really good. Like the removal on Extinction is solid. It's probably still most of the time the worst one, but I feel like I'm playing Jades when I get to double, making minions off of the other relic, right? Make a couple of 8/8s, couple of 10/10s, whatever. It's just that you need something else to do in your early game to not die. Like, whatever other thing you're doing needs to be good enough that you have the luxury of, at some point, playing some relics for not very much value, because the first 3 or so aren't great. And then they start popping off, right? Particularly when you can double them with the location, whatever. But usually it was like, you've got to get at least one crappy relic played, and then hopefully you can double dimensions. And at that point, you're like, discount by 2, discount by 3. And that's reasonable. And you're just sort of using that as your card draw engine. And then if you get to do the huge discounts, like, nothing costs mana anymore.
Yeah.
By the time
if you get it
do
going, you think it's a Skull of Gul'dan. No. This is Rogue Galakrond. It's just like, you just do what you want to do. There are the games where you vault dimensions twice. Just like, you take your deck face up, and you just do what you want. Though I will note, there is one more bug I didn't mention. This is the weirdest one I've found yet. Relic of Dimensions doesn't draw from the top of your deck. It draws from your deck
Oh.
randomly. So
It's bizarre,
if you dredge and then relic, you will not, like, there's an equal chance of drawing that card as drawing any other card. It draws randomly from your deck. It does not draw from the top. Why? How? How? How and why? Why and how? Who? Where? What?
Yeah, we were getting notes of, someone ran a 40 card version and was running the Sunken
Sentinel.
Sentinel. Wait, no, not Sentinel, but whatever. The Demon Hunter Sunken card.
Defector.
And Defector, right. And that, I was like, there's no dredge in here. How are you ever getting it? And the answer was, well, sometimes they just drew it from door because it's a door of dimensions. It pulls from anywhere, I guess. And so they would end up with the Sunken Defector off of that, even though it should just be the last card. There was nothing else that shuffled the deck.
Thematically, I get it. And it's kind of like, I'm not opposed to it still working this way. Because thematically, like, pulling randomly from, like, a dimension in your deck, like, I think that's kind of rad. But they should put it on the card if they're going to do that. And also, good luck finding a way to explain that.
Yeah. I mean, if you're tutoring, that also doesn't draw, like, the next one down. Right? Like, Switcheroo can draw, like, the Sunken whatever.
Yeah,
that's
but
at the
this
bottom of
just
your deck. But
says
at least
draw.
that's tutoring. Like, you understand that, like, that's different because it needs to, like, just pick one at random because it's not necessarily going to, like, read through until it finds something. But, like, if you're just drawing, if it says draw, you're drawing X cards without any condition on it. Like, that's weird.
It is extremely weird. Is the only card that I can think of that works this way. But flavor-wise, I kind of get it, but it's strange.
Yeah.
It's strange. Right? Yeah. Anyways, don't play DH. Warrior, there are fun lists. There are not good lists. There are fun lists. So, that's what you can do. And and Paladin, I don't know, there are Paladin lists that have Paladin cards in them, but there's nothing that's exciting enough for us to stop the show at this point. So, Paladin fans, I don't know, play Cariel. You'll be fine. Play 2 Great Halls, though. Card is great.
Cariel's pretty good against Nathrius.
Yes, Cariel is good against Nathrius because of how it works. And Great Hall is good against minions because of how minions work. All right, and we did standard vibing for 2 hours. That's going to be our show today, so we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out the thanks section on the website, coinconcede.com. You can also find our contact info, our show notes, our Patreon information. You can monetarily support us at patreon.com/coinconcede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.coinconcede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.coinconcede.com. Right into our Gmail at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at CoinConcede. Like, share, and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/CoinConcede. To like some CC swag, heading over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. Big thanks to our producers, Number Theory, Doge TK, Proby1, Crash Cap, B Squatch, David P, Fade to Black, Wildu, Jeremy T, Bottlecaps, and Lucky. Big thanks to our subs during the show, Incrediplum, D. Finberg, BR Milwaukee, Leo Days, Baldwin Greg. I'm just going to coin concede to Atesh right now for all of us, because Atesh, you're great, you're wonderful, we'll miss you, good luck in the next thing, don't be a stranger, feel free to crash our podcast anytime. If you're not in the Hearthstone team, do you still need PR approval, or can you just do what you want? Let me know. Coin concedes, wicked good.
So I'm going to coin concede to Decon, who just about 15 minutes ago tweeted that they got rank 9 legend in Asia with the Wig Priest that I posted this morning. So that's pretty cool. I not something that I'm used to, but so that's that was pretty cool to see. And
wait, hold on. Let me read
gonna...
this tweet.
Yeah.
I'm going to read this tweet. It is in Japanese, but the translation says, list is from Wicked Good. The grace of the transcendent not only makes the advantageous situation even more favorable, but also the disadvantage can be overcome together with the light heat and the Valish. Strong against opponents who outcome with freezing, it's so great to be provoked. I want you to come out on the far right because it will come out next to you and it will be eaten together by the Devolator.
I'll translate what is happening.
Okay, I said Google Translate.
It is a delightful translation.
This is actually Microsoft Translate, so that explains a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, because that's what TweetDeck uses. So On a slightly more somber note, I'm also going to coin concede to Not Rob. Not Rob is one of the former hosts of the Velen's Chosen podcast, and does a lot with Pokemon Go now, and had a really, really, really rough week that I would not wish on anybody. I won't go into the details, but thinking about you, buddy, and I hope you can get some peace with what's happened and start to heal.
Yeah. Here, amen. Rob is a great guy. I had the pleasure of meeting him at a couple BlizzCons, and Velen Chosen was a pretty formative experience. I know for all of us. It was one of the podcasts that I started listening to that got me into podcasts. One of the few gateway podcasts after Angry Chicken. Velen Chosen, Coin Concede back then had Kenny, Cora, Andres, and Cinder. Long time ago, and yeah, Rob was the guy driving the bus over at Velen Shows and taught me a lot about what I know today about audio. And great dude. Miss him over here and what he's gone through. I think you said it pretty well, Steve. Couldn't really say it better than that. So
yeah, I mean, Velen's Chosen was actually how I found Coin Concede, because Cora guested on Velen's Chosen, talked about how to get to Legend, and that was how I found Coin Concede originally. So if not for Rob, I might not be here. So. But yeah, thinking about you, buddy, and I hope I just, all the best, and yeah.
Edel, Coin Concedes.
Yeah, I guess just to everyone that came for my streams this week, because I hadn't really been streaming towards the end of last meta, was just focused on other games, but it was great to kind of have people rush back streaming the new expansion. I think there's always a sort of like, oh, are people going to show up? There's so many folks to watch as soon as launch happens, and so having pretty decent numbers Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday felt really good. So thank you to everyone who came and hung out.
Yeah, I'm gonna shamelessly steal that because I love my triannual streams. Theory crafting makes that number different, but septannual, something like, I don't know how many it is now. But for everyone that came out there, for everyone that dropped me some, I kept getting raided when I was trying to go to bed, as you do. Because every time I said, all right, this is the last game, then I got larger and larger raids. And it was 2:30 in the morning. I'm like, all right, I got to go to bed. And No Hands just drops a bunch of people. I'm just like, guess I'll play some Hearthstone. So, yeah.
Well, you know why this is, though, right? They're like, oh, Hat. And so everyone's like, well, Hat's
this is my one chance.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want to clarify. I'm not mad, and I was going to stay up and play anyways. But being on camera is a little bit different, and I was going to go play on the MacBook and chill, and instead I stayed on. But you know what? I'm not upset. Listen, I don't if you out there listening, if you happen to have a fatty raid you want to drop on me when I'm streaming, I'll make it work. Feel free to try it out. We'll figure it out together. It'll be okay. But yeah, it's a good time as always. And I want to give a coin to a few people that helped me out with some advice today. You two obviously, and then Rare and Regis, David got some advice. I might have a bonus stream coming at some point in the near future. We'll see what happens. Working on some stuff. All I have to do is that whole time thing. We'll figure it out. But
time. You don't sleep. Just you'll sleep when you're dead. It's fine.
I think the point here is that the first thing may lead to the second thing faster, and I kind of don't want to do that. So, in the meantime, that's going to do it. Keep calm and mull for library, and if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
All right. Hey, under 2 hours. I
Holy
show
crap.
159,
And there's not
159.56.
there's not even a developer interview baiting us this time.
Yeah, yeah.
159.56.
355?
Yeah,
It is.
355.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, I mean, we just vibed about standard the whole time, and I think got a pretty good nuanced look. Next week we'll be able to bet on balance changes. Week after that we'll have them, most likely. I don't work in the game, so I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure. There's no way they nerf 10 hours before decklist deadline. No
no.
way. No way. Yeah. And then next week we should be normal time, right? Thursday?
Oh,
Next
forgot.
Week, yeah.
I forgot a coin concede to Storm Rage. I'll have to.
What?
have to write
Let's
that
just do it
down
right
for
now.
next
That's all. Let's
Yeah, just
just
yeah.
do
Oh,
it
I'm
now.
not editing that. No.
Okay. All right.
That's more.
Wait,
That's more work. That's
Wait,
more work
it's
for Edel. Just write
it's
it.
your coin
I'll
concede,
just write it in. This will get copied, and then I'll remember next week.
Okay.
but it's your coin concede. You're editing. When you're
Yeah,
editing,
I don't feel like recording it.
what? You don't have to
Edel's
do
already
it
got
now.
enough. We've already made enough work for Edel. She doesn't want to make more work for
It's-
herself. That's what she's trying
It's
to
a,
say.
so
it's
when.
it's just for the shanty, right? Is the
Oh yeah, I forgot
we're
about the
just doing the
shanty.
base. What and,
Yeah.
and Ted as well, even though I didn't end up using his lines.
It's okay. All right, let me
Wait, Ted,
export.
no, Tim.
Ted.
Ted.
Tedo.
Hello.
Yeah. Thanks all for being here. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Just doing some exporting. Oh, Lepton's not still here, right? I was gonna play the Kurtrus sounds because I like those. It's just I love the motif they used here. They did. This is the minion. That's the minion, and then you have the hero. Wait a minute. That's the same
It's the
thing.
same thing.
It's the same thing. Wait, why is this the same thing?
I thought you were testing us.
No, I was testing myself. Where did this thing go? I had the other one. Oh, that's where I put it. Here, and then here. It's this guy. Okay, let's try this again. See, that's the hero. You get kind of it's much more maudlin. And then the big one. That's the quest reward. Really love how they use that same motif for all of them. They each got their own little thing. Yeah. But the quest reward, it's going down. Big Kurt comes down, it's going down. Alright. Well, no, it has the trumpets. The trumpets are new. Alright, everyone. Gonna bring the stream down. We're all tired. It's hot.
Yes.
But thanks for hanging out. And we'll have this up Sunday-ish, probably.
You want to raid David, maybe?
Sure. Okay, we raiding. We going. Thank you so much, everybody. Thanks, Dan.
Bye, everybody.
It's still raid bar still going. All right, here we go.